Welcome to My Wife, the Casual Fan, where I, Jordan Cooper, discuss the week in pro wrestling with Samantha, my wife, the Casual Fan. And based on what we watched yesterday from the couch, you have a lot of things to say about CM Punk. Have you calmed down? It seems like this morning that you were like, okay, I reflect upon it and I take back everything that I've said.
Well, I feel like the first thing that you need to know about me is that I don't have nostalgia for CM Punk. So my first experience with him has only been my only experience has been through AEW. So I never got a sense for caring about him or liking him.
Did you know who he was
So
at all in any regard? Heard the name before?
yeah, I'd heard the name. I didn't know any of like his wrestling style or anything. I only watched wrestling through like what was on in my house. And so even at that point I had never nobody in my house was watching it. It was just a name I'd heard.
So you have no nostalgia, no nothing. So basically, 2021, CM Punk returns. Everyone goes nuts,
Mhm.
right? The big, United Center and everything. And you're like, fuck this guy.
Well, initially, the funny thing is when I very first started watching, I was excited because we had really bonded over wrestling. That's really got us closer in a way we'd never been before. And so there's this weird thing that I was thankful for CM Punk because him coming back was the catalyst for you to really start taking AEW seriously and getting into it. And then I just became a part of that. So I don't think that without CM Punk, I would have liked wrestling. So I have this weird thing where I do have this internal gratefulness, I guess. I fancy myself an empath, if you believe in that. If not, whatever. But I feel like he is a scared little boy in a superstar's body, and so that validation that he seeks so desperately he doesn't get from within, and I think he exudes that, and he doesn't come across as confident to me. He comes across as begging for attention. And so seeing that thing last night and with the constant "where's the lie" and "I'm the king" and I'm tired of being nice, is you never were nice, get out of here.
Yeah, but you had that feeling when he originally came to AEW. I mean, like upon like Darby Allin. I know you weren't paying as much attention then, but I mean, as we started going to shows and CM Punk going into that MJF feud,
Mhm.
like you're the one that told me it's that like this is a very insecure person that is a narcissist, and I'm like, that's kind of what his heel character kind of is. He's supposed to be a cult leader. He's the cult of personality. So it's hard when I talk about CM Punk with you. Now, obviously, I knew him from as Ring of Honor CM Punk more so than WWE CM Punk. But I constantly have to ask you, it's like, do you not like CM Punk the character, or do you not like Phil Brooks the performer?
It's funny because I thought about that like the whole way home. On the drive home from seeing family, I was like, what if CM Punk is MJF and never leaves character? Um, and so these things where you see as Phil Brooks, that it is just that personification of CM Punk, and that's not who he truly is. But I've never had faith that he has the confidence he pretends to be. I just don't think you can be the voice of the voiceless and also be a champion for a year.
Well, so I mean, your take on CM Punk, your attitude this 10 months that he's been off,
Mhm.
where it's like we don't need him. Like you don't care. You're like it doesn't matter. Like that's where the difference between the character and the performer comes in. It's like
Mhm.
I could obviously we don't know Phil Brooks the person, right?
Right.
But yeah, I mean you're much more perceptive of people than I am.
Yeah.
Obviously way more. I have no
Mhm.
perception whatsoever. That you don't want Phil Brooks back. Like you don't mind CM Punk the character, but you didn't you are attached to other characters on the show more and other
Mhm.
performers that you prefer more. That
Mhm.
you looked at Dynamite's 2 hours of Dynamite going, yeah, when CM Punk is here, like at least a quarter of the show is the CM Punk show, and I'd rather that 30 minutes go to other people.
Yeah, like when we were doing the MJF feud, I thought it was really great. And then when I look back, because if you get me started, and I won't do that here because it
No,
would take up a whole hour. No,
I want to get you started. That's the whole point. Get you started.
well, I just fucking hate CM Punk because, all right, well, I'll really get into it then. Like
You're the
anything, this
casual
is
fan. Everyone in the internet wrestling community always talks on behalf of the casual fan. You're the casual fan.
I
Speak on
know.
behalf of yourself.
Well, I just don't think that he comes, and I think his whole shtick is his history. Because I've only ever seen him on AEW. I didn't see the Eddie Kingston stuff, but I know Eddie Kingston, and I know I would have believed Eddie carried that. And the one gotcha moment, and now that I am an actual fan and not just somebody watching with you, when CM Punk was like, "You're a less famous Miz," I was like, "Ooh, that popped me," because I knew the reference. But watching back on it and being like, no, every bit of the segment I love is MJF. And so I think for me, when you're pitting CM Punk against people like MJF or who I absolutely love, Hangman, I just don't think he carries the weight he does in 2022, 23 because he's just a cult leader. He is a flat personality. He's got no range. I will give it to you. He can sell like a motherfucker. But in the ring with Hangman Adam Page, there was nothing there. Tell me when I'm telling lies. You said that 42 times. Your segment was 8 minutes. 3 of it was saying, "Tell me when I'm telling lies." You didn't say a fucking thing. That whole 8 minutes, all you did was say, "I'm back and I did a dog collar match and I didn't lose it." Motherfucker, you did lose it. Your daddy stripped you of the title. That's not your title anymore. Daddy took it away.
Well, he supposedly had it in the bag, but didn't take it out. I'm assuming. I mean, putting on by how they write wrestling, that they didn't want the visual of CM Punk with the title when MJF is really the world champion.
No, I know, but this is the best in the world, and all you have to say is, "Oh, I beat your champ in a dog collar match, and I never lost this." You did lose it! Daddy took it away. That means you lost it. You no longer have possession. I had an iPad, and then my dad, who paid for it, took it away. That's not your iPad any no more.
He took it away for bad behavior. We were
Exactly.
at All Out in Chicago, and
Mhm.
you remember we were driving back to the hotel,
Mhm.
listening to the Fightful post show or whatever, and Sean Ross Sapp is reporting that like shit's happening at the press conference, and
Yeah,
like
and it was
everything
all
goes
over
awry.
Twitter. And I'm like, "Jordan, what's going on? This can't be real." And I kept playing you the clip. And the only clip we had was Denise Salcedo's, and it was really weird and distorted. So I thought it was fake. And I was like, "What's going on? What's the fakeness?" But I just think Chicago just likes CM Punk for the sake of liking it. That's a like personality trait. The
Well, he's
same
the
way
Second City Saint. He's from Chicago.
right, the same way people have talked about you cheer for Don Callis and Dominic Mysterio because it's fun to cheer.
Fun to
Or
boo,
fun
maybe.
to boo. And I think that people cheer for CM Punk, but I want to see what happens when they're in California or when they're in Virginia. Like I don't think that CM Punk fits all elite wrestling because it's not all CM Punk wrestling, and he brings a very specific style, and I think that's for Collision. So now that CM Punk is back, I don't want him on my TV. I don't want him around the Bucks, the Elite, Dante Martin. I don't want him around. Yeah, I was going to say Sky Blue, but she was on Collision. I just, if CM Punk is going to be there, I want Collision to be his show, and I don't kind of want anything to do with it. I didn't enjoy Collision, so that's just not my guy. I don't think that he holds up without the nostalgia to like. And you're the opposite, so you really like him, but what of his
I
current
never
work?
said I liked him. I said
Yes, you
I
do.
enjoy his work.
Okay, but I don't enjoy his work because I don't like the character, and it might be because it's Phil Brooks, but I
That's what
know
they want. Maybe that's what they want. I always say, remember,
it might be.
you're the casual fan, quote unquote.
Mhm.
You're and I would say the new and more inexperienced fan that we're on the couch. A lot of times, the reaction that they're looking to elicit, you give them, and
Yeah.
I've seen the trick happen so many times, and I'm like, okay, that was interesting the way they tried that there. Oh,
Mhm.
I enjoy that type of thing, like really psychoanalyzing it. Is it the fact that CM Punk is getting that reaction from you? Is that, I mean, that's better than ambivalence. I mean, is it? is he doing it on purpose to separate the crowd? Because some people, I'm using that whole moniker, some people, right, in the internet wrestling community, right? You mentioned your guys, Hangman, the
Mm-hmm.
Bucks, Kenny, like
Flippy
this is
shit.
the tribalistic nature of like, are you blinded? Are you blinded in your hatred of CM Punk over this this behind the scenes feud? I want to dispel the notion that it's not as much that, because you fucking didn't like the guy even before Brawl Out.
I didn't. I've never liked him from the day. Literally, we joke about it, but from the day one, I was like, this guy's a fucking narcissist that does not like himself. And I don't know. I wish I could say what made me think that. And I'm not saying I'm right. I could really be wrong. It's just what I feel. But I don't know if it's Phil or the character. I know that CM Punk in AEW was only likable because he was presented as being bad. I don't know that he was necessarily a face, and we could have a whole conversation
Well,
about
no,
what
no,
I
no,
think is
no,
face
no.
and
I
heel.
mean, the reason why we had 7 years. Remember, you don't know any of this
Hmm.
information. He was away for 7 years, and
Hmm.
when he was in WWE as the voice of the voiceless, I mean, essentially, he was decrying the fact that WWE is fucking stale. It's sports
Hmm.
entertainment. It's not professional wrestling. And he was the one guy on the show when it was awful during those periods that was like, this could be better than what it is. If you but the thing that you pick up on is that while that's true, while when he was in Ring of Honor, he was great in Ring of Honor. I mean, I think he's an excellent performer, great storyteller, right? Deep character. He could play
Hmm.
face, he could play heel. That a lot of the sentiment from when he was in WWE was not this could be better. It was more this could be better if only I'm on top.
Hmm.
And it seems like you've pointed it out as like it doesn't seem like this guy, whether it be the performer or even just the character that he's portraying, is the type of person that is like, I'm here to help in whatever way that I can mold this thing, but it's not my company, and I'm want to be a team player. And he tends to come across, which may be something that I relate to a little bit more, as, dude, everyone's an idiot. If you just let me be in charge, this shit could be so much better. And some people don't want that.
Well, it's interesting because I feel like I genuinely had an aha moment, my why I hate CM Punk moment. And it may be true and it may not be true, but Cody's promo of you went away, you cried all this shit, you took your ball and you went home. And then Cody's like, I kicked through the forbidden door. I think Cody's promo got me so hyped for what he did that I do look down on CM Punk because you said the shit and then you didn't do it. And what's the one thing for 12 years you've told me? You can't complain if you don't take action. And I don't see CM Punk as having taken action. What did you do? I don't know, but I'm a casual fan, and all I know is the phrase took your ball and went home. I don't know what that means. I don't know the exchange between the belt and the Summer of Punk. Those are things I don't know. So I have it where those are in the back of my mind, but it just doesn't register with me as him being an underdog. To me, he's the narcissistic champ that could never have enough.
Well, I mean, we were actually at the show with Cody's last promo in
Mhm.
Washington, D.C., with the ladder, everything there. And of course, half the crowd's booing, half the crowd's not. He's playing kind of this like pseudo baby face.
Yeah.
But the difference that I want to point out in your mentality from, obviously, we watch wrestling all the time together, is that Cody obviously left WWE as Stardust, 6
Mhm.
years, independence, New Japan, did the all in, the bet with Meltzer and everything happened. He created the forbidden door, whatever that type of shit. And when Cody left AEW, like you watch WWE on occasion, not as
Mhm.
often as AEW,
I watch
but
Simon Miller's ups and downs every week, so I know the
right, but
gist of the story.
you root for Cody both in the character sense and the performer sense,
Mhm.
even though your favorite promotion that like you like watching is AEW, and he
Mhm.
helped create it, and then he left. He took
Mhm.
his ball and went to the place that he was treated badly,
Mhm.
and now you could if Cody's on the screen on WWE, that's probably when you pay attention the most, and you root for him, whether it being the character or the performer, because you never got the sense from him that when he was in AEW that he was the type of personality that needed to be on top. In fact, I mean, I think one thing that cursed him from a dramatic storytelling perspective is when he couldn't challenge for the world title, it kind of cemented like a ceiling on what he could do. But you have no negative perceptions towards Cody Rhodes, and I know that there's probably some disgruntled AEW fans, tribalists that are
Mhm.
like, fuck Cody. But CM Punk, you don't view as like, oh, finally the savior's here. It's like, no, like like, dude, other people created this and this was fine. We don't need you. Like, so don't act like you're Cody when he's not.
Right, and that's the thing, like, when he put it in that context, and it's funny because Cody, I love Cody. I don't know why he just spoke to me on such a deep level. And sure, you and I created some deep, deep, deep backstory for him that wasn't real. That I don't know. I still believe that like Cody could have been playing some stuff in his mind, but I am fully convinced that like he's on a journey for himself. Like I genuinely believe that everything Cody does is for his self pleasure, the way you do. You're not out for success. You're out to impress yourself, respect yourself, and achieve your goals. Cody just happened to have some really big goals that he had success in. Like the way I see Cody is somebody who never quits. And you know that I've always said, I don't think Cody has it. I think he's as close to having it as you can manifest and build and bring, but he wasn't born with it the way unfortunately Phil was.
But what makes that any different? What makes CM Punk different than that? As someone that is out for his own personal goals. I mean, aren't you describing a little bit more of a selfish person?
Yeah, but one brought people to the top with him and one tore the whole thing down.
So you view CM Punk as someone that's coming back to AEW and looking to tear it down and build it in his own kind of pattern, in his own, the mirror of this. And I think, getting along to what we saw last night on Collision, that that's more of a manifestation, that style of show, and what was
Mhm,
presented seems like, oh, this is the CM Punk show. It did to me, at least. I'm one of the few people, it seems, online that
mhm,
didn't think it was a bad show. I thought it was a good show. Just it's not Dynamite.
mhm. I didn't really necessarily love the show, but I was never going to because I hate like I and this is the I'm exact to the fan. Every feeling they want you to have, I have every gasp, every false finish, everything. So he makes me feel stuff, and I know that that's what he's supposed to do. And I think if I saw Phil Brooks on the street, I genuinely would probably want a picture with him. So I don't know. I can't say. And I try to be unbiased and truthful about myself. I don't know how much I hate him or how much of it is just that I'm supposed to hate him. I don't know. I think I feel this passionately, probably because they're working me.
Well, I mean, we were at Double or Nothing and Dynamite in Las Vegas.
Hmm.
I think online it was portrayed a lot more like, oh, it was like 70% cheers, 30% booze. And like we were there, like 50-50 would be generous. I hope, I mean, my hope is that they're aware of it.
Hmm.
The worst case scenario, if they're not, that
Yeah.
that Chicago is CM Punk's Bizarro World, just like MJF has Long Island as Bizarro World. That I think once we start getting into Canada, right, with the Canadian Collision dates, with
Hmm.
the rest of the dates, obviously they're going to be announcing more dates. That he isn't going to get the same reaction he got in
No.
Chicago yesterday. And you thought on the couch yesterday that when you saw CM Punk come out, and even in his kind of heavy-handedness in his promo, that you think
Hmm.
that the performer, like, they weren't sure if Chicago was going to be like 95+%. Like they were unsure that maybe he's going to get a mixed reaction even in Chicago, because from a narrative standpoint, behind the scenes, it's called All Elite Wrestling for a
Yeah.
reason,
Right.
because the guys that he shit on are the guys that started the company that everyone enjoys.
And the funny thing is, and this about me, is I don't think people should lose their jobs for the shitty things they say. I think people should have space
How about
and
if they bite dogs or whatever? Should Ace
right.
Steel get fired?
See, that's beyond my pay grade. It's complicated. And if this were anybody but CM Punk, I probably would be like, this is stupid. Let's not talk about it. But because it is him, but last night it almost looked like he took a sigh of relief. Like his thing was over and he was walking up the ramp and his shoulders were tense and he just had some some insecure body language going on. And then there was the moment where he went and his shoulders relaxed and you could see the crinkles in his eyes where he had a real smile. Like to me, I was just like, he's finally having the okay, they want me back moment. Like I think the person Phil Brooks had that moment of I'm going to be okay. I don't think he had that until that moment. How could you?
Well, you said that he's so insecure that he probably always has that moment.
Oh, I did say that. Yeah. Whereas like juxtaposed to Mox, where in Mox's book is like, I don't even get nervous anymore. But I think that CM Punk's driving factor, or Phil Brooks, if he wills, needs to be liked. I think he never felt like the world champion he was in WWE. And so I think that he's still seeking the validation that he never gave himself because he wasn't his own champ.
Well, one positive you did say watching the show that you said he's in shape.
Yeah, he looks good. He looked great. He looked fit. His arms were jacked. The thing is that I don't think there's many people like me and you who will. We understand that I objectively hate him, and it pisses me off when I watch him because he is a good wrestler, and I see why people like him. And then he goes, "Your tweet today made me laugh really hard." He has all these he uses his platform for these really promising promising positive messages. So then you're like, well, I hate you. You come across like a narcissist, but then you have like the sign that says like trans rights or like protect trans kids or something. So he's just, I don't know who he is.
Do you think he knows who he is?
Probably not.
Do you think most people know who he is?
If he's doing his job well, no.
Do you think he's someone? If we're now psychoanalyzing it, and for those that
I
don't
do
know,
everyone.
that you've been doing crisis counseling for years, right?
Yeah,
like
7
suicide
years.
prevention and ADHD, anxiety, anything like that. So you tend to pick things up more than most because you're talking to more people more often than I do. That like I come like to me like I could understand CM Punk's either the character or the performers like motivations of I believe I'm the type of person that I want to do things ethically right to whatever extent that I could get, but I still also understand that it's a business. Like there's a right way and I'm willing to fight for the right way. And it's not with me on top. It's just like I think this is the best way to do something. And I think that may rub for other performers the wrong way because either they don't have those same convictions or because of political reasons, they don't express them.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is he really doesn't seem to kind of keep himself under wraps. And it's funny because I've wondered like I always wonder if any performer has like autism, like just but there's got to be a level of that pain that does affect him, right? You can't be that hated because he's very well like majorly disliked. Like that has to affect him
Not
on
by
some level,
everyone. I mean, there are
psychological.
people, but it seems. I mean, of course, we're
No,
going by third-hand reports. I mean, who
right.
knows? But I mean, is this the type of thing? I mean, not to cut you off. Like, should we even care about any of this? I mean, like, if we just like didn't know about Brawl Out or anything, all we know is that like you said, Daddy took away the belt. Right, he's suspended, and 10 months later, I mean, he was going to be out anyway because he tore his
Right.
tricep, so he was going to be gone anyway. And then he comes back. It's like should we even care? Should they even address the fact that like into the counterfeit bucks line, and that I'm sorry that your favorite wrestler is a soft type of thing, which is kind
Mhm.
of rich coming from a guy that seems like he remembers
Gets his
things from
feelings
14
hurt.
years ago and brings them up. I mean, like seems like he's projecting a little bit.
Yeah, and that's what he does. And the thing is like when you hear that he's a good guy backstage, it's not by a lot of people, and it's by the people that are dead loyal to him. And so I think that he's the type, exactly like you said, kind of like you, that he rubs people the wrong way mostly. But if he lets you in his circle, he's probably pretty ride or die for you. But you know that my beef with CM Punk predated Brawl Out. Like I genuinely in my whole heart, I don't think Brawl Out changed my perception of him. My post Brawl Out experience was ruined because of the drama. And so I have some hatred towards that. But I like think on it really hard if my opinion of him is genuinely affected by that. And I don't think it is.
Right? You don't
Um,
think it is, even though he beat for the championship your two
yeah.
favorite wrestlers in the
Yes,
promotion.
because I'm Mox and Hangman. So and I'm sure that him calling Mox an empty-headed dumb fuck, like that makes me mad because Hangman is the epitome of what you and I both love about wrestling. He's our favorite like active character.
Right.
He's the most well-developed character. And so seeing that and then seeing the CM Punk character that is fucking 20 years fleshed out and nothing more than I'm better than you. And babe, MJF's got that under control. So I just like he doesn't bring depth to me. I don't
But
even
how about
remember your question.
no? But how about the rest of the Collision show in general? I mean, I looked at you while we were watching the show and said this doesn't feel like Dynamite. It doesn't even kind of even look. They have the red ropes,
Mm-mm.
which makes it look more like WWE Raw.
Yeah.
Uh, and like the main event was a fine match. The trios match with CM Punk and FTR, but it was kind of a house show match. Like there was no angle. There was no like I
Builds.
get it. I know a lot of times Dynamite is like a whirlwind. It's like someone on cocaine writing a script. Sometimes there's way too much gang wars going on,
Mhm.
way too much stuff happening. I get it. I get it. I get we could slow it down a little, make the segments breathe more. But it felt like, outside of like Luchasaurus beating Wardlow, which I mean, I don't know where that's going to go. We see with Christian acting as if he's the champion. There's a direction there. I don't know where Wardlow goes from this. Wardlow seems to be lost as a character for the past year, but it seems like nothing really happened. It felt like it didn't feel
Mhm.
like Dynamite. It seems like Dynamite, even the subpar Dynamites. It's like, oh, things have been set up. Things have happened. Maybe I didn't like what happened. Maybe I don't. Oh, they're going to be progressing. Oh, he's going to get into a feud with that guy. Oh, there. Or sometimes with the women's division, it's like, oh, they're running the same angle for the 84th
Again.
week in a row. Like it feels like something's happening, and with Collision, it felt like a better version of SmackDown to some extent than than an equal version of Dynamite. And I'm sure you agree with me, but my concern is more. I think our concern is that if that's intentional and it's split and it's like that's that type of show and this is this type of show, I think we could be fine with it. But
Mhm.
you have to admit that it's not like wrong or it's not invalid if like we're a little bit bummed out that it's not just 2 more hours of Dynamite.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. That's exactly what I wanted Collision to be. I saw a lot on Twitter where people are like, "I'm really happy that I really wanted this to be a different show." And I mean, I'm assuming those are the people that don't like the high octane that is Dynamite. And it's kind of funny. Like this is just my weird brain. Dynamite, the phrase versus Collision, like one feels really like intense and powerful, and then one is just like, yeah, this is a more slow pace. At first, we both agreed we wanted just more Dynamite, but I also think we talked about it, and this seems like a really good place to kind of stop this tribalism. If you notice, the show last night primarily existed of ex WWE people, and it had that feel. And we talked about the red ropes throwing off the contrast. Red ropes is a horrible idea. Red on camera never works. Not that I know much, but I just think if they keep Collision what it is and Dynamite what it is, I'll be happy because I will still have my bucks and all the flippy shit and this really fast paced go that we like. And then the people that don't like AEW because it doesn't have the more slower pace and the quick recaps. And Nigel McGuinness, I don't vibe with the commentators yet.
But I think my point, maybe a little bit more selfishly, is that the reason I got into AEW is because it was an alternative product. Mm-hmm. So I look from a brand value perspective that, like, I want all of AEW to be the alternative product. Mm-hmm. What do I care, right? Why am I going to be emotionally resonated with this is the show for people that don't like AEW? Like,
right.
Right,
doesn't really make sense.
What if there's a spectrum where it's like you got, the traditional American professional wrestling, which could be exemplified by WWE, could be exemplified by Jim Crockett Promotions in the 80s, like something like that. And then you got like experimental indie stuff. You got like some of the GCW stuff, the extreme stuff. You got Lucha Underground. You got even like some of the more like Japanese Stardom, even like stuff like that. Like AEW exists like from 1 to 10 is like 3, right? And it's like, it's a different enough because like what TNA did in the 2000s was they were like an 8. It's like we're WWE light with a different shaped ring, right? And then it's a lot of Crash TV stuff and a lot of stupidity. Then Ring of Honor went the other way and said, okay, we're going to be more like just a super indie. So we're going to be like a 3, but like it's going to be really dry, right? There's going to be storylines, but it's going to be more like it's not going to be the production value. Obviously, they didn't have television; you had to get DVDs. And I look at AEW and go, I want you to stay on that side of the spectrum. Like that's why I'm watching. So you're adding more programming of stuff that like I don't care. AEW wise, I don't give a shit. Well, that's how they get in more people. Do I personally care? You don't care. I don't care. Just give me more of why I tuned in to watch AEW.
Yeah. I forgot it. That's why I jumped in because I was like, man, I have a really good point about that.
You have to interrupt me.
I know, but I forgot. I
think people that watch my DFS stuff maybe kind of be a little bit shocked so far in 32 minutes in.
How much I've talked?
Yeah, I think you've talked more than most of the guests on my own podcasts.
Yeah, but you have 12 years of training.
That's the whole point. You're the casual fan. Everyone wants to know, right? The casual fan, right? When you hear it on the podcast I listen to, you always yell at me. It's like, why you listen to people that you don't agree with 80% of what they say? It's like, and they always speak on behalf of what could it like, oh, I know what all the background, but will the casual fan, like Samoa Joe and CM Punk was a big feud in Ring of Honor 2003 to 2005. Did you understand that from how they presented it on TV? I mean, you didn't experience, but if you didn't know previously, based on what they presented on Collision and I guess on Dynamite, the previous Dynamite, you may not know the details of that rivalry, but you know that other people and it's being presented as a big deal.
Yeah. I mean, but when it comes to wrestling and stuff, I don't understand. I just go, oh, that's not for me. That's not mine. Just like in half of Max Caster's raps, I don't get because I don't get the political or the sports reference. So I'm just like, I bet that joke made somebody laugh.
But are you confused about like why people are excited about Bryan Danielson versus Kazuchika Okada?
No, because I have half a brain. No. I understand why. I mean, again, it's not for me, but I understand people that like technical wrestling. That's
But
going
you
to be
know,
great for them.
but the way that they presented it, it's not like, who's this Okada guy and why should I care?
Right. Well, and the thing that always bothers me, and if you are putting your voice on a podcast, you're well versed in the internet. If you're listening to a podcast, you're well versed in the internet. These fucking people know how to use Google. I told you, remember the first thing I told you? I was like, if you would have told me there was a gay love story in wrestling, I would have started watching it earlier. So I went back and watched a ton of videos. I even found like my own YouTuber that I liked that did a whole story on the Golden Lovers. So I don't understand why these podcasts who speak to a podcast audience pretend like they don't know how to use the internet.
Well, there's this fictional group of people apparently out there that would love professional wrestling if you just presented it in the dumbest way possible to get people caught up. But do those people exist?
No. Wrestling, you have to be an adult that's willing to play make believe, and a lot of times some adults are too embarrassed to admit it, or they look down upon like it's a low brow entertainment form. And so I think a lot of people won't give it a chance because it is hard to get into wrestling from nowhere. Like if you were to turn on the TV right now today, you couldn't watch it. But you couldn't do that with any show. We've discussed this a lot. You can't do that in this day and age with TV. So what does it matter?
But I
You
could
go
turn
back
on an
to season
episode.
1.
For instance, I mean, you did a podcast for Supernatural, the show on TV that was what, 15 seasons?
Mhm.
I've sat down on the couch. Yeah, I'm barely paying attention.
Mhm.
But you could turn on an episode of Supernatural in season 8,
Mhm.
and there may be references to stuff that I have no idea about.
Mhm.
But like the 40 plus minutes of the show, I would understand. I'd be like, okay, seems like these two guys they're brothers, I think. Right? I think they seem like they're brothers. Like they didn't mention anything, but they seem okay. That's an old guy. That may not be their father, but it's like a family friend. And then, oh, that's the bad guy. Like, I don't know. Just comes across as that's the bad guy, and maybe the biggest bad guy on the show, at least like I can piece that stuff together.
Yeah.
This isn't like complicated. This isn't complex in any way. I mentioned on Twitter that because Meltzer tweeted out about like, well, Ring of Honor didn't even have television in the mid 2000s, and it seemed like the entire crowd knew the whole deal with CM Punk and Samoa Joe. Just the fact that they haven't been in the ring together for 18 years, and I go, well, it's contextual clue. It's we can figure this out. If I shed the end of the Royal Rumble, right when Sammy turned on Roman Reigns,
Mhm.
like imagine if I showed the end of the match to just someone. Let's say we showed it to we have friends that don't watch wrestling
Mhm.
and go, they may not know anything about WWE. They don't know who Roman Reigns is. They don't know who Sami Zayn is. They don't know any of this. And I just showed them and said, watch these 20 minutes. Would they have understood like the contextual nature of, oh, this is the head guy, and it seems like he's like a mob boss, and these are like his henchmen, and that's like this
Yeah.
like the accountant guy, and this is the outsider that was in, and then he turned like it's not that like, dude, you don't even have to
It's
know
not a
much. You
new
could just watch the scene and
story.
tell it.
Yeah, it's not a new story. Nothing we watch is a new story. Wrestling's not telling new stories. X-Men are not telling new stories. Manifest didn't tell a new story. We have like these limited amount of stories that we tell. And so first, can we just back up, and why the fuck does anybody even care if we have new fans? Like, why is that even a concern amongst us? Dynamite just got 2 more hours of TV, or I mean
Well,
AEW with
we wish
Collision.
Dynamite got 2 more hours.
We do. God, I wish. So what I don't understand is why we who have zero idea how the business actually works have these conversations in the first place. We do it because that's what they talk about. But what you and I sit and talk about on the couch, we dream or we fantasy book and things like that. Like I don't understand why so many people care about the business. Like worry about your job and enjoy wrestling.
Just enjoy the show. I mean, like,
Just enjoy wrestling. Yeah.
right. When we watch any other show, I'm not going, well,
Mhm.
oh, let me see what the rating is tomorrow. Like let's see
Yeah.
what the overnight ratings look like. It's like what do I got? I have a thesis on why people do it.
What?
And maybe you could back me up as the empath, as the person that knows people. I think the wrestling audience is older now than it used to be. I mean, it's a lot
Mhm,
of people that got exposed to it in the 90s, right? Or maybe the
mhm,
80s, right? So it actually does skew older. Does it come from this insecurity? To get back to like CM Punk insecurity.
mhm.
This insecurity that I remember being, 14 years old, 1995, watching pro wrestling, watching WCW, watching WWF, eventually getting into ECW at that point. It wasn't that popular. I mean, what like once you get to the late 90s, it's pop culture, right? Stone Cold,
Right.
The Rock, all that then it blew up, right? But very similar to comic books. Like now that's pop culture, but back then it's like you were a nerd. You were like
Mhm.
you were the outcast. You still want pro wrestling, that fake stuff? That's stupid. Like your friend, like if you went to school, your friends, right? Your people in school, at least, maybe not your friends, would think that you're stupid for watching this stupid shit, right?
Yeah.
This is for kids, right? This is for like 8 years. I watched this when I was 8.
You know
What do
it's
you,
fake, right?
right?
You
You
know
know,
it's
it's
made
fake,
up.
right? And it's the need to go, the cool kids in my class, if they don't understand how great this is, how entertaining this actually is, they won't give it a chance. How do I make it so that I want to show you something that'll get you into pro wrestling? I can't show you the nerdy shit. I have to show you something else that kind of draws you in. And it's this insecurity of we need to make sure that the cool kids know how good wrestling is, and they're they they think that, well, all this intricacy and all this background and everything like that, and is like, look, it's like, oh, take a look at my ant farm, rather than we live in a day and age now where the Marvel Cinematic Universe is more confusing than any pro wrestling promotion, and it's $1 billion industry, and the coolest kids in the room are the ones on forums collecting toys and looking at, oh, they mentioned this thing in that episode and on that movie and whatever. Like, dude, when do we get to the point where pro wrestling is, we still have people that are 50 now that remember when they were 14 going, I want to get the cool kids to watch this, when
Mhm.
like you don't have to do that anymore.
Right. Well, there are YouTube channels that get more views than anything on TV. Like why are we worried about nobody cares about what how many views Mark Rober has or whatever.
I don't even
Like
know who that is.
he's a science guy that gets like 5 million views, but I knew you didn't know who he was, right? But you don't I'm not trying to get you to watch Mark Rober.
You don't
He
want
has
me you
5.
don't want me to be a casual fan of Mark Rober?
I know it's weird.
You know what? You
That's
know
like
what he should do on the science channel? He should
what?
add more pro wrestling, and then I'd watch it. That's how we
Well,
could get the
no, no,
casual
no. He
fan.
needs more vignettes. That's how you get the casual
Oh,
fan
the
is the
vignettes, of
vignettes for the
course.
backstory. For the
Right.
backstory, because you can't watch the story in the ring.
Right.
But you and I have a theory too to go along with what that is also why they don't like guys that don't have the look. Because they're still that nerdy 14-year-old that's either too fat or too skinny, never a normal sized. That now, oh, if Adam Cole can be 5'6" and have not washboard abs, then that means I don't have an excuse
It's used to what? To not be a pro
to
wrestler?
not be a wrestler. Yeah. Because before I'd be like, oh, I can't look like The Rock. I'd never be a wrestler. But now you don't have to be hot to be a wrestler. You
Well, I
can't
think
be
I
a
think I think most wrestlers are attractive.
you can't be a schlub to be on TV, but GCW has some stinkers.
Right, but that's not a major promotion.
Right, but I know that's what I said. To be a professional wrestler,
Right.
you have to be like on a TV wrestler. You
But
have
I
to be
thought
hot.
I thought you've said it at some points that the the old hat wrestling people, they want the 6'5", 250-pound chiseled guy because they want to touch their penises.
Yeah. And then yeah, like I'm convinced that Vince only hired people who he wanted to touch their pee-pee or have them touch his pee-pee. And then that was a joke we had amongst each other. And now we call CM Punk's ego pee-pee or his pee-pee ego. Because I think CM Punk has a small ego, PP.
Is that show title?
Yes, he
That's not
just
that.
doesn't. CM Punk doesn't give confidence, and I don't know, or self-esteem. That's what he self-esteem. No, he gives confidence, not self-esteem. Like, yeah, he's out here pretending that he's good, but he doesn't think he is.
How about Roman Reigns? I mean, we're discussing the week in pro wrestling. I mean, other than obviously that you predominantly like AEW more than WWE,
Yeah,
you didn't really even see SmackDown that the Usos finally turned on Roman Reigns.
yeah.
Does Roman Reigns? Okay, here's a question: does Roman Reigns, as a performer slash character, does he portray what's the difference between how Roman Reigns kind of gaslights the bloodline and the people, right? Acknowledge me, right? He has
Is
self-esteem problems. Is do you consider what are the similarities and differences in your eyes between how you view CM Punk and how you view Roman Reigns?
I have a very clear, distinct divide in my line between Joe and Roman Reigns. I don't have a clear definer between CM Punk and Phil. So I think Roman Reigns is the exact opposite, right? Where I think Joe is a confident man, has a lot of self-esteem, and is so strong in himself that he can play this vulnerable, because Roman Reigns is a very insecure, very vulnerable character. The level of acknowledgement, the level of control he has to have over people. He's so good because Joe, I think, knows that Roman isn't as good as he thinks he is. Roman is faking, and I think Joe plays Roman faking. I think Phil plays CM Punk, but CM Punk isn't really, or Phil isn't that confident, so CM Punk doesn't come across that confident. Did that make any sense?
No, that makes sense, but I think the dynamic difference is related to the performance. This is where we see like the meta of why that would happen is that I think it's this is a weird thing to put it. It's privilege
Okay.
because so let me put this together because this is the
Hmm.
first time I've thought of this.
Okay.
It's some level of Roman Reigns or Joe Anoa'i has some level of privilege in WWE that CM Punk never had anywhere, right? Joe, the performer behind Roman Reigns, could be as
Hmm.
confident as he wants because the machine is behind. Like Vince is there, Triple H is like he is the most. He's one of, if not the most protected
Hmm.
characters and performers in wrestling history, right?
Right.
Practically, right? There's no way Roman Reigns is not the top guy whenever he's there. There's like this that he the performer could walk in and it's like he is the face of the company. Like, and
Yeah,
there's no
he
like
owns that company.
right, he owns the company. It is
Hmm.
there's not going to be a point in time where it's like, yeah, let's put Roman on the shelf a little bit and have someone else be on top. It's like, no, if Roman's there, he's on top. Now, obviously in the mid 2010s, 2015s, they push him as a face and the audience, had some backlash because of it. But do you think he's developed that confidence because as a performer, he could go out and experiment. He could go out and do the character that he does. While CM Punk, when he was the world champion in WWE, like, dude, he wasn't even the top guy, right? He never headlined WrestleMania. John Cena was there.
Hmm.
The Undertaker was there. They brought The Rock in for that feud. And AEW is not a top guy promotion. It's more of an ensemble cast.
Yeah.
So now CM Punk, Phil Brooks, what I mean, is
Hmm.
much more insecure in his mind because he doesn't get to portray that confident character because
Hmm.
like he always has to be on the top of his game that like I need to portray myself this way in order to stay on top because he's not used to ever like unequivocally being on top regardless if he's you know fan interest is going up and going down and whatever. He's like, well, Roman Reigns, dude, the fan interest can go anywhere they want. Roman Reigns is the top guy of the company until he decides to go away and do movies.
It's funny because something you said made me trigger what I was thinking earlier. Like, so we've always kind of seen AEW as like the underneath baby face, right? That their company is the underneath baby face, and Collision doesn't feel like that anymore. Collision feels more like WWE, the production level, because they're no longer scrappy and just fucking pulling shit together. And I think that you're right, that level of confidence. So what I don't like about Phil is how he constantly complains that he wasn't at the top when he was at the top. And so you're right. He was Roman there at the time, or who? Cena was the top guy,
Right. So
right?
there's
When he was
Cena,
there.
and then they had Cena and Rock were the headline
Okay.
WrestleMania, and you still obviously always had the Undertaker there,
Mhm.
right? Triple H was there. I mean, like he never really felt like the company was behind, and truthfully, they weren't, right?
Right.
Truthfully,
But
they
the people
really
were.
weren't.
But the people were, and that's where it bothers me because they were behind you. You were the champ, but you never allowed yourself to be the people's champ because you wanted to be Vince's champ. You wanted Vince to want your PP.
So you think it still
Vince
comes
never
down to
wanted
the
PP.
ego PP, the whatever
I really do.
the
I
ego
really do.
penis,
His ego PP.
his ego. Okay, that's what it is. The ego PP.
Yes. Yes. I think
For
but this
SEO
is just
purposes, like, dude, like I could, like, we could get so much more hits on this video if I just titled it "CM Punk's Ego PP," right? Because people, hey, there are women out there that want to see his penis. So you're like, hey,
we almost saw his penis one time and I was excited. That was still really new. I was still really new to wrestling, so I wasn't used to the trunks coming down so low. He was like he did it up in the air thing, and I was like, "Ooh, I
you
almost saw his
catch that?
penis."
Some dude, I watch the matches much more intensely than you do. We've gone to shows and you've caught people's penises
There
coming
were
out, people's
tits out at that show. Her whole breast fell out.
your whole breast fell out, and you're like, "Did you see that?" And I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" It's like her fucking.
That was at a house show, wasn't it? Was that
Yeah, that was
the
what,
WWE
Carmella,
house
I
show?
think, at a
Yeah.
house show, right?
And then there was a wardrobe thing at Royal Rumble. Yeah, I always see that. That's the shit that I love, though. That makes it real to me. It's a live performance, and those flubs, those give character, in my opinion. Um,
So, as the casual fan, it doesn't come across as unprofessional to you.
no, it's not unprofessional or cringy in any way. That was a really good point, though, because like we call them the incels, right? Everybody calls them the incels. The incels say
Not
that like
everyone. Did explain the incels, right? Everyone calls them the incels. What does that mean?
well, I mean, everybody knows what an incel is, right? Like, but I guess maybe not. Our version, our definition is a guy that maybe doesn't have any self awareness, thinks that wrestling is just to cater to him, typically doesn't have a lot of experience interacting or respecting or understanding women's opinions. Um, now I forgot the point of what incels I was talking about. Why did I bring them up?
The incels with the unprofessional, with the
Right, right,
wardrobe
right. So the
malfunction.
incels who like are expecting perfection want these people, right? Because they almost idolize them. So when you see a boob slip or you almost see CM Punk's penis, like that to me is interesting because that reminds you that these are humans and they're working hard and these are just people like us. To me, it's like a beautiful moment cemented in reality when we are all playing a game of make believe. And I do think that those types of people are the types of people that they're like, if that happened to me, I would be embarrassed. So I'm embarrassed for them. Not realizing that we admire these people on the highest level. It's not unprofessional, it's real.
Well, the same way with like botches, right?
Hmm.
Like people, miss hit and move or something like that.
Hmm.
We're not the types of people that like laugh at that. It's the part of a live performance. The fact that, to me, I find it very impressive
Yeah.
that that the precision and accuracy and safety that the on the this level, even on the indie level, even when we go to GCW shows
Hmm.
and go, they've been doing we went to that FSW show versus ECW where we're
Yeah.
sitting like 3 feet from the right. We could literally touch the ring.
Sweat
And
was falling on us.
right, it was a small venue, and then we saw that like trios match with Jack Cartwheel and Alec Price, and there's barely any room, and they're still doing like 450 flips over into, of course, two people, they're catching them into the crowd, and you
Hmm.
go, well, that's dangerous because if they don't do that move, I mean, they could literally kill themselves. They're gonna
Yeah.
knock into a post or the metal bleacher or something like that. And then you go, well, these guys, they're not crazy. They've practiced this. They're so experienced, even for a couple of years,
Hmm.
that the amount of times that we see like a botch, right, or a slip, or they were just slightly off or whatever,
Hmm.
like is actually much rarer than for what you would think of as a performer going. Imagine Hangman, when he runs on the apron and then jumps up and does the moonsault without looking and just has to trust that there's going to be someone there to catch him. Like he's been doing that for years. And he rare if there was a botch where he over rotated just a little bit, or it's where someone failed to catch him a little and he banged his shoulder or something, like it doesn't take me out of anything. This is a live performance. I'm more impressed that he could do it 99% of the time with perfectly, right?
Well, and that's the thing. I almost wonder, like in New Japan, do they worry or talk about botches? Is that kind of part of theirs? Because they present it in such a kayfabe way that botches in general would be such a huge part of wrestling if this were real fighting. And
Right.
I like the way, remember Jeff Hardy? Remember, I was like, I can't watch this. And then he did that on purpose. So like I think a botch is actually like a storytelling piece in itself. So I think it is just like you said, it's a part of live performance, and you and I are people, we love tickets. So to get to experience that, to see them as real people and not just these machines that can do this. These are people that chose to do this with their life. It gives us space to respect them in a different way.
But do you think that that's what was a major contributing factor to what made you enjoy wrestling after me watching it, and then you going to shows and going, oh, now I get it. But you get it in a like the character and performer are very similar in Supernatural, where you're not just rooting for the two characters on the screen, you're rooting for the two actors,
Hmm.
right? You enjoyed their performance, even if the show could suck. Be like, that episode sucked, but I enjoyed the way that this actor tried. The material sucked, right? You go like,
Yeah.
this. The show was written poorly, but he really did a good job at doing the best with the shittiest
Hmm.
material. And I'm rooting for that guy. And then maybe there's a performer on the show, an actor that you like. This actor sucks, right? It's like I would love the character if the actor could just play the character so much differently or better than the way it is. That's something that if you go back in the history of wrestling, most people, the whole point of it was that it's kayfabe. You're supposed to think that these are real people, right? The characters are real people. They're the same thing, and that your enjoyment, if it was like that, would almost be less than it is now.
Yeah, I think so. But I also think like in the world, and I think that one thing that AEW does is we've always said the AEW is for a smarter audience, right? But it's not even necessarily that it is a smarter audience. It's just different. The Bucks like to play with the fourth wall and who the elite are at their core, right? When they developed what All Elite Wrestling was going to be, they wanted to bring in people that kayfabe wasn't a necessity, because when you tell these stories, you have to tell the story in the way that you understand that we know what a false finish is. Chekhov's gun. We know that the table is someone's going to go through the table, and what the Bucks do and what they try to build All Elite Wrestling around is a fan that's going to understand that, a fan that's going to know, and even a casual fan of wrestling is going to know some of these tropes.
I mean, you picked up on it quicker than than most people, right?
Mhm. Yeah, but you don't have to lose the excitement of wrestling just because you break kayfabe. Like I almost think that knowing that we do kayfabe and knowing that we all pretend that we still pretend like you're fighting. We still pretend like this is a real grudge. Um,
No, but do you really think that? I think there was a lot of people in the past, like more old school fans,
yeah.
that aren't treating they don't they they don't think that they're part of the show in a weird way, where they're like, there's a difference between, I mean, we joke around it going to WWE shows. It's like this WWE SmackDown is what do you say?
I say SmackDown is filmed before a live studio audience.
Right, because you don't feel like you're really part of the show. Right?
You're not watching the show. You're at a television taping.
Right, you're at a television taping. Yet at an AEW show, you feel like you're
part of an indie show.
Right, that you're an extra, but you feel like at an AEW show that you're an extra in this fictional world. And when MJF comes out, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to boo, even though
that makes me so mad.
You're excited to see him, right? But it's
of course you are, but boo.
As you say, you show your love. You show your love by booing, right? But do you think that that's so much different than in the past, where your reaction is part of the show, but you have no like when I went to go see Raw. Like, it wasn't a matter of like, oh, Vince McMahon Mr. McMahon's coming out. My job is that I enjoy his performance and I'm going to boo him because of it. No, their reaction was like, you were supposed to think that this is the evil boss.
You hate him.
Right, and you hate him, right? And I just people know how wrestling works enough that I just don't think that is as prevalent. And I think that if you treat it as that, I think the casual fan will look at it and go, what do you think I am, stupid?
And I think that if you are going to talk about the casual fan, assume the casual fan has had wrestling experience, because nobody in the history of ever has turned the channel and been like, seen Hangman and Mox going at it and been like, I'm gonna watch this. No, you don't just turn it on and watch it. That's not the way TV works. Like, even I became obsessed with this YouTuber like over the winter, and I went back and watched thousands of videos of him. You don't just start watching and continue watching from that point.
Right. Even when you started watching AEW,
I went back.
Right.
There was this guy called Sonny the Jobber and Tranquillo Club. We went back literally and I watched the history of, and it was only at that time 2.5 years, so it was easy. I couldn't do that for WWE, but I mean, you could go back from the last pay-per-view cycle or 2 or 3 pay-per-views ago. Casual fans have access to the internet.
I mean, look at me. I didn't get back into wrestling until COVID, right? And I pretty much didn't pay attention for at least 10 years.
Yeah.
And like when I saw Seth Rollins, I'm like, oh, that's Tyler Black from Ring of Honor. Like, and I remember Tyler Black at the very end of me kind of following Ring of Honor. You know what I did? I watched the WWE documentary. Like yeah. if you were to talk to me now and go and talk to me about the Shield, I would be able to point out all the pivotal moments of the Shield. I literally never watched them until 2020. I didn't know they even existed. It didn't even Roman Reigns. Plus, I've heard the name Roman Reigns, but I mean, as the Shield, Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose, I wasn't watching wrestling. Dude, CM Punk against John Cena, I wasn't watching wrestling. How do I know all of these things? You watch it. Dude, there's so many videos. And you know what a lot of the videos won't have? All the shit that you're not going to need to know anyway. Right? The random episode of SmackDown in 2013 when some character that was released, some wrestler that was released a year later versus some extra, like, dude, whatever that storyline, yeah. I'm not going to have that background information. You know, if I'm going to need it, I'm never going to need it. No one cares. It doesn't matter.
And if you do need it, go watch Simon Miller's Ups and Downs. Like, I don't understand. There's Fightful. There's What Culture. There's Cell Monster. Like, there's so many people talking about what is going on in wrestling that you'd kind of have to be a fucking idiot to not find access if you want to know about it. Yeah, you would have to purposely not look.
Samantha, we need to get the cool kids, right? We have friends like Lizzie and Seth, right?
Yeah.
Our friends, do they watch wrestling?
Nope. We got to get them.
Do you think there's anything that we could show them to go, like, look, you should watch it like we watch? Is there They're literally
We're trying to convert my nephew into a wrestler. And he will talk to him and we'll show him clips. We watched the whole MJF versus Punk thing.
To be fair, he's 14.
Yes, he's 14.
Right. It just
But
it's not like
he's brilliant. He's a brilliant 14. And in that MJF thing, he was like, "Oh, I think I like MJ. I'm on MJF's side. That other guy sucks." He's an empath too. I'm not an empath. I can just read body language.
And my body language is that I think the show's over. Do you have anything else? Speaking for the casual fan, I know, yeah, the Usos turn on Roman Reigns. It's like, fuck that. I just want to shit on CM Punk most of the time.
Right. No, but I'm just saying that I don't watch SmackDown ever, and I could probably sit here and spend 10 minutes telling you the whole Roman Reigns story, because you don't have to watch every second of wrestling to enjoy it. And I guess that's our closing words, right? You can be a casual fan and absolutely love wrestling, because we don't fucking get paid for it. Who cares?
Even the hardcore fans, imagine trying to sit through 3 hours of Raw. We've literally tried to sit through
and left
3 hours of Raw. Right. I mean, I think up in Cincinnati we stayed. That actually was a good Raw when Big E and Lashley with the cage match. That actually was a good one. But the one that we went to here in Louisville, I mean, we left during the main event.
Early, yeah.
Right, because it's like I don't know how.
It was Seth Rollins and someone that we've seen a million times. Yeah,
this was a year or so, 2 years ago or whatever. Right. So even the people that like wrestling are like, well, 3 hours of Raw, it gets a little rough, because there's a lot of stuff where 5 years from now, if you remember that episode of Raw, it's like maybe there's 2 minutes of it that you will have to remember in order to get some reference currently. So it's not a big deal that you didn't know about some, it's Candice LeRae beat Piper Niven in a 3-minute match at 9:38 or something. Like that, who cares? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So are you going to change your handle on Twitter? So you no longer SN Road So Far, Sam?
No, I'm changing it to 5 a.m. Creations.
Okay. So people could follow if people want to follow my wife, right?
Yeah, and it's at 5 a.m. Creations with 2 S's.
With 2 S's?
Yeah, I didn't know what else to change. There was a bunch of different
So there's already a 5 a.m. Creations regular?
Yeah, and a 5 a.m. underscore, and there's a bunch of them.
So why the double S's? It's like you have a lisp.
I don't know. What other option?
Well, you haven't changed it yet.
No. Well, that was just for Instagram. I don't know if for Twitter.
What? Why don't you do 5 FIVE AM Creations?
What's VE?
To spell out the word 5?
Well, the whole point of 5 a.m. is because my S's look like a 5. So when I write my name, it looks like 5 a.m.
Oh, that's the reason.
You've never known?
I didn't know the reason. I thought the reason was because you work third shift, and while you're on the phone, you make creations at 5 a.m.
No, that's a cute reason, but no, it's because
I legitimately thought that was the reason.
Back at the dialysis clinic, remember when we met, I would write on my jacket. You had to write your names on your jackets, and they called me, one time they're like, your thing looks like it's 5 a.m. And it's just ever since then, that was it.
Okay. So some level of 5 a.m. creations on Twitter. I'll change it, whatever. Or SN Road So Far, Sam. I guess anyone else, I mean, you could follow me at Blender HD or whatever, but I mean, most of it is fantasy sports, but I'm tweeting more about. I think the DFS people are not liking that I'm tweeting about wrestling so much now.
Yeah, they're gonna want you to have your own wrestling account.
I don't know. I ain't doing that.
No, of course not.
No, my account is me, and you get everything that's me. And if you don't like it, then you know why I'm
GFY.
Tweeting? Right? No, I'm tweeting.
What?
I'm tweeting the wrestling stuff because I want to attract the casual fans. Right? That wouldn't be into DFS. I need to get them through wrestling.
This is your whole shtick. No, you're trying to make the DFS people casual wrestling fans, right?
That's right. Yeah, a lot of them are. I mean, a decent amount that I talk to actually are. They just don't tweet it. They just don't tweet about it.
They're not. And let's be honest. If I'm tweeting during the middle of Dynamite, do casual fans do that?
Yeah,
probably. Right? Casual. Yeah.
People, they shit talk or whatever. They're like, "Oh, that was great" or whatever.
I'm going to choose to believe MJF that only 7% of the audience interacts on Twitter. That made me feel good inside. I'm going to choose to believe that he was telling the truth.
And only 7% of that 7% is worth interacting on Twitter.
That's very true as well.
Okay, so if you enjoyed this type of discussion, right, with my wife, the casual fan, feel free to like, subscribe, be on the podcast feed or whatever. And if you don't let me know, fine. It's Twitter, right? If you really didn't like it, you'd probably I'm going to get some, there'll be some angry tweets or whatever. But appreciate it, and we'll do more. We'll do more of these week after week or whatever. Forbidden Door next week, so maybe not next week on a Sunday. And I think you. I know you look at me and you go, oh, you know so much about wrestling. That I'm the one that has to be right and you're the one that's wrong. But to me, I enjoy hearing your opinions because it's not coming from someone that's watched 25 years of wrestling and is jaded and thinks everything sucks. Even though on this show, to be fair, most of it has been you telling the world how much CM Punk sucks.
Yes, but that's only one time. That's actually not. Anytime he's on my TV, I'll be bitching about how I hate him. But yeah.
Okie doke. So that's been the week in pro wrestling.
Yeah.
With me, Jordan Cooper, talking to Samantha, my wife, the casual fan.